All right, everybody. You're probably wondering, what's this I see on my screen? Where's the latest episode of Not That Bad or It Is That Bad? Well, we are going to talk about a movie that we've never talked about, and it was time to finally address this. Me and Connor have been closeted fans of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and we've hyped this movie up to the extent that this was literally the first collaboration that Connor and I ever did. We talked about
Yeah,
the Rob Zombie Halloweens.
all
And
those years ago.
there's the white horse text, the first red flag for so many people. And we, it's the 15th anniversary. We kept talking about doing this movie justice, trying to celebrate it in a way that's like really special to how much we love this movie and how much we have to say about this movie. And in one regular episode just wouldn't do that. Uh,
Yeah.
so I begged Connor to do a commentary track so that we could watch this unsung masterpiece together and walk you guys through it, both our fellow Halloween 2 lovers and the haters. Maybe watching it with us, you'll see it through our eyes now.
I hope
And
so.
well, you'll definitely see that kid actor who is not the original kid actor from Rob's first
That's not
Halloween.
Daig. That is a new actor.
Chase, I think his name is Chase.
That sounds
Reportedly,
about right.
yeah, reportedly he was Dag was recast because he had hit a growth spurt, had gotten too
Yes.
tall. I really don't think it's very consequential either way because this kid is really used as more of a. I mean, I would have liked the continuity because
Yeah.
everybody else came back, but this kid is really just used as a visual motif. I think this is his only real scene with Sherry Moon Zombie and the White Horse
Now we get our call back to the first film, of course, as we open up. And I've actually been to this exact location that
in
they are
Georgia,
filming this
right?
right now. This was in this part, I believe, was Madison. They also filmed a lot in Covington. I can't distinguish between the two. It's been a number of years since I've been there, but I've walked these streets. I've been in these exact places, and it really is a beautiful place, kind of nondescript. It's kind of perfect for a new setting, and we got kind of have to talk about that. We're kind of seeing a little bit of this new setting instead of filming it once again in California like they did the first
in
remake.
Rob's
They put
first
this in
Halloween
Georgia.
and the first Halloween, John Carpenter's
Yes,
Halloween,
same place.
famously
Yep,
filmed in Pasadena.
yep.
Now, does this place photograph for Illinois for the Midwest? I doubt it. I mean,
Um,
you can answer that with more authority, but
yeah.
I think this is such a perfect setting just for the mood of this film, for the environment, the kind of environment that Rob wants to put his characters in. It's obviously more rural. It's kind of more backwoods.
Mhm.
Um, but it just has all this character. We're gonna get to like the epic Halloween party later. That's one of my just favorite, like, of all
Oh
the
yeah.
scenes in this franchise that you should put on for a Halloween party. Put that scene on and just put it on loop. It'll create the perfect mood. And here we have Scout Taylor Compton and Brad Dourif,
Hmm.
uh, and I just love the immediate continuity from that first movie. I mean, I feel the way that people
Oof.
of the fans of the original Halloween 2 feel like creating um that perfect aftermath. But I mean, this is just in a different league. I mean, look at how she's being wheeled through that hospital. Like, it's so visceral. Like, you can really tell just how traumatic of an ordeal Scout went through. And people, of course, are going to complain that like these surgery like the insert shots of her surgery, that's just Rob being a gore hound. I mean, it does scratch that itch, but
Right.
it's done with a real purpose. It's done with
It
a real
is.
purpose.
It is. I mean, it helps justify what we see later, and I think all of this does. We see this aftermath, which I feel like so many horror sequels, they don't ignore it, but they are afraid to show it in this graphic detail, and they're afraid to explore some of the things that this movie will explore
Well,
later.
because it
But
takes the fun out, which
yeah, it's
was the
oh
experience for
yeah,
a lot
for
of people.
sure.
It totally took the fun out.
Yeah.
Oh, we have Richard Brake's first appearance in a
Yes.
Rob Zombie film. This is back when,
Yeah.
to me, he was just obviously the guy who killed Batman's parents.
He was the guy from Doom for me. I had seen Doom at the time, and that's what I recognized him as. He was just as pervy in that movie as he turns out to be in this one.
Yeah, he has a type. I'm sure he's a lovely man. I'm sure
He
he's a
seems like
lovely
it.
man. But
Everything
on
that I've seen.
screen, casting directors have decided that he has a type.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a creepy looking dude. No offense to him, but he's I don't think he is normally, but he knows how to invoke that. I mean,
No, I'm
31 is
no.
another Rob Zombie collaboration that I
Mhm.
think he just worked perfectly in, and
And
this
that's where
shows it off too.
people really started to pay attention to him. Like that's when I
Yeah,
started hearing the name Richard Brake and not just
yeah,
the guy who killed Batman's parents. And we also have like a cameo storm in the first 20
yeah,
minutes of this. I mean, we
yeah.
have Stretch,
Yep.
Caroline Williams from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which of course is such a huge influence on Rob's work in general. So that's cool to see her there. When I saw Halloween 2 in LA at the Arrow Theater, she was there in attendance and she did a Q&A afterwards, which was really cool.
And we just got a quick flash there as they were loading him up into the coroner's van of a guy who we'll see later on, the actor who plays Patrick Star in SpongeBob. he uh he will
Is
be
that the
appearing
other
again.
coroner? Is that the other
No,
coroner?
no, that's so later on we'll see him again. I'll let you know once we see him again. But never noticed him in this intro here. I've seen this movie many times. I never noticed that we see him a little earlier.
Now,
Oh, that's a great line.
yeah, we have to address the question: how did Michael survive getting shot in the head? Well, he was brought back in a satanic ritual conducted by the Weinstein brothers. Um, After the first movie made a lot more money than they were expecting, so he was brought back in a satanic ritual by Hollywood's most notorious Satanists, the Weinstein brothers. And
This shot right here, I think, is really interesting because they're choosing to highlight like the evil of this character that we're not going to see for very long. This is where I can sort of get the complaint. It's not a complaint for me, but like this is a disgusting
just
shot
how
of
foul
Richard
it is.
Frank.
But see, it's
Yeah,
so intentional that I mean, I see why it rubs people the wrong way, but it's such a clear
for
choice.
sure,
And
for
I like to
sure.
think that it's almost like like this man's evil, this man's vileness kind of brought Michael back. It's maybe not directly, but it just creates this atmosphere of like, evil like permeates, you know, like this
Yeah,
permeates.
yeah, and I think what I like about Rob's movies too is that he shows an imperfect world in all of them. No character is a saint, no character is absolutely perfect. It's like real life kind of, people are profane, people
Cow.
say terrible
Sorry.
things.
Just we're about to run into a cow.
Dude, I
Oh
was
no.
on this road and I thought I would run into a cow. It is as desolate as it looks over there.
Nobody complains when they run into the cow in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, the you know the first of the cow vehicular manslaughter duology that forms with
Yeah.
Halloween 2.
Well, we're about to get into a part right here where a lot of people complain. I like to call this Richard Brake's fuckfest. But we'll get into that, and then immediately afterwards, we'll see where we go from here. But this is where people's complaints really started with
Sure,
this movie in this
sure.
scene.
I mean, but it's par for the course now. I think anybody who saw the first movie, it's not like they're like, where did this come from? Like they're
Right.
swearing in this movie. I guess my answer to the complaint there is like, I just want to know, do people realize that this is supposed to be funny? I don't think people realize that this so much of what they think is like Rob trying to be edgy. It's dark comedy. It's like very obvious to me that it's dark comedy. So I don't read this. I don't read most of his movies as edge lord. I mean, there's definitely moments. There's a pretty notorious one in the first Halloween. that I
Yeah.
don't even want to bring up.
No.
I'm sure people, I'm sure
No.
people know.
We're not watching that movie right now,
By the way, we
which
should
is
clarify that we're watching the director's cut. And I want to
yes.
clarify that because if you go to any streaming platform, you'll get the theatrical cut, which is very, very
Hmm.
shocking to me. I thought that
Yeah.
was virtually unavailable, at least in US markets, but it was on
Hmm.
every platform. And that's just not that's not the version that me or Connor prefer.
Yeah, and I had to get the theatrical version from a French Blu-ray copy that was on Amazon for a while, and I was really shocked to see that that's the version that's available. Maybe it has to do with the intricacies of putting an unrated movie on your streaming services. I don't know if there's any red tape that comes along with that, but I do know that it's definitely more palatable for Halloween fans. It seems to be the one that's preferred,
It,
if anything, in the
Halloween
majority.
fans prefer the theatrical. Rob Zombie fans
Yeah.
prefer the director's cut. Now, I
Yes.
love a.
Oof.
This is one of my favorite pieces of gore in the movie. I just there's something so
Oh.
mean spirited about it. I love it. But what I also love is the fact that Richard Brake clearly thought this man in a Michael Myers mask was going to help him.
Yeah.
Like you could see the hope in his eyes, and then he realized, oh no, you're the Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You're the guy we put. Oh my god, take a
The white
shot every
horse.
time we
Yeah.
see the white horse. I'm not
Yeah.
drinking anything alcoholic because that
Me
would be
neither.
fatal. But we
Mm.
have our first
What a
white
shot
horse
right there,
encounter.
too.
So if you take out the white horse stuff, I mean, this goes down as I think one of the most brilliantly photographed sections of anything in the Halloween franchise.
Leave it in. It's still
I
like
mean, it's a
people.
powerful image. I'm saying other
Yeah.
people wouldn't complain
Oh,
about it.
yeah, yeah,
People
yeah.
would celebrate it. It is
Oh, for
so
sure.
atmospheric.
Oh my
And I
God.
really hate how people frame these movies as you know John Carpenter's film was atmosphere, this is just violence, and obviously there's a very different balance of atmosphere to violence going on. But man, I mean, we have the Moody Blues that is like literally telling you that this is going to be this is going to be a vibe movie. This is not going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
just violence. This is a vibe.
And you know what I love about this music choice is that, Rob has said in interviews and I believe in the commentary, that the lightning strike is meant to signify the beginning of this dream sequence here. And what I love about it is that the song, the lyrics, never reaching the end, the song repeats throughout the entirety of the dream
Yeah.
sequence. Anytime a TV is in earshot, it's just this song repeating and this never ending nightmare for Laurie.
We have
Yeah, it's
Academy
really
Award
cool.
winner Olivia
Octavia
Spencer.
Spencer.
I'm sorry, Octavia
Yeah.
Spencer. Um, must have been so early in her career. I mean, she's just a day player in this Halloween sequel, and I think The Help was only a few years after, and I know
Wasn't
she
long.
was an A-lister after that. So just a snapshot in her
Yeah.
career, and then you have
Oof.
Danielle Harris, the great Danielle
Ah,
Harris.
my heart beats for Danielle Harris. It Yeah, this is really cool, I think, because even though it's a dream sequence, like this is Laurie kind of replaying the image of Annie in her head, something she blames herself for. We see that later in the movie, or even though their relationship gets tumultuous, she just blames herself for what happened to Annie, and
Which is
boy, is
very
she.
realistic,
Oh, for
very
sure,
realistic, and
for sure.
and more specifically than PTSD, I think this is really about survivor's guilt.
Yeah, I mean, even in an extent, like, the fact that she was sort of Michael's target throughout that night and Annie got hurt. I mean, even that is enough to throw you off. And by the way, Octavia Spencer, amazing actress, like so many actresses in horror films early in their career or early in their filmography, or even before they get their big break. All they need is that one chance usually, and they knock it out of the park when they get it, and then they're big stars. She's not an exception to that. I think it's well deserved for her.
Yeah. I hope she looks back at this fondly. I mean,
Me too.
there are a number of A-listers who don't like to reminisce about their days doing horror. Although I
She
think
did an
that's
interview.
changed. Oh yeah.
Yeah, she did an interview on, it was either like Fallon or one of those late night hosts, might have been Kimmel, where they showed a clip of her getting killed by Michael Myers and she laughed about it. So it seems like she's a little more accepting of it.
She seems like
I
a
don't
good
know how she
sport
feels
all
about the
around.
movie,
Yeah,
but
yeah, she
yeah,
seems like a good sport all around.
I like
But
her a
what
lot.
I'm thinking of now is that I'm finally hearing Matthew McConaughey talk about
Yeah.
TCM
Yeah.
Next Generation. I'm hearing Jennifer Aniston talk more openly about Leprechaun. And I think that as horror continues to dominate and it becomes clearly the thing that's keeping this industry going, like the thing that has the least overhead, the thing that has the biggest profit margins, most reliably, I think actors are starting to embrace their history with the genre. And there
I
he
agree.
is. He's about, come on. Yeah, we have
That
Michael
shot of him stepping
Myers.
out is so good. The pan up to see that. I mean, that look to me, this dream sequence look is, I mean, it's top tier. It's this is what this is. If it's not going to look like the mask from the first movie, this dream sequence is exactly what I would want.
What I love is that we have a WWE player playing Michael Myers, and that was such an entrance shot that, and in this corner,
Yeah.
he's 7 feet tall for some reason. It's Michael Myers.
You know what though? Like if they're gonna go with this route where it's like you're debating whether or not it's sort of nature and nurture, and there's kind of like back and forth, and both of them kind of fighting each other, whether it was nature and nurture with Michael Myers. I do like that he is generally like a freak of nature. When he's a kid, he's odd looking. When he's an adult, he's this hulking beast of a human. Um, it makes you. I think it was a really deliberate choice. I think it was a great choice. And man, this right here, another amazing choice, um, just making the hospital into a house of horrors.
There's so much wicked imagery in this movie in general, but especially in this hospital
Oof,
sequence. I mean, I don't feel the need to defend this sequence so much because most
absolutely
people do
not.
acknowledge that it's great. But then people are like, "Oh, the best part of the movie isn't even real." I mean, in her mind, it's real, and what we see in this sequence, it's what Laurie relives every night, every time she goes to bed, which is a really powerful way to actually start off her journey. It's actually a perfect example of show don't tell.
Yeah, I
Even though
mean,
we get a lot of really great scenes
oh
with her and
yeah,
Margot Kidder later on.
yeah, completely agree. As somebody who's in this, who's gone through something in which they have repeated nightmares on, it to me this is like this is perfect. To have something where it's like she doesn't usually remember the details when she wakes up, but she just remembers the feeling she had. She remembers some things here and there. It's like she's actively blocking it out as it's happening
And
again.
it's shot like a nightmare. Like even in the
Yes, it
theatrical
is.
cut, which takes out some of the more, I guess, surreal imagery. I mean, just the framing choices, the shot composition, that shot of Michael stepping out from down the stairs, and he's just this
Yeah.
one giant silhouette. Now, of course, it was we got a comment on the production as it goes along because if you listen to Rob's commentary on this movie, it's one long venting session about how much of a nightmare it was for him to film this. I wonder if he has reoccurring nightmares about going to set and you're running into the Weinsteins and
Yeah.
being told that you have to cut these pages or whatever.
I would have nightmares about Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, I'm sure many people do. Many people
Yeah.
do. Uh,
This image right here that we're coming up on. Oh my God.
how can you take that out?
No,
Like,
I
how can
have
you
no
take that
idea.
out?
And it so illustrates that it's a dream sequence. Like if you don't get it here, why would a hospital have a pit of bodies? This is it's perfect to be like, okay, yeah, this what's happening is not happening.
No, but it was really raining that night apparently in Georgia. So you can imagine,
Yes.
especially poor Scout running around in just that, um, like those scrubs, running around in
Yeah.
the rain, in the freezing cold rain of, I think, wintertime Georgia.
Yeah, I believe they filmed it in January and February of 2009. So that would have been, yeah, that would have been, I mean, it does get cold down here. It doesn't stay cold for very long, but it does get cold down here in those months. So,
Yeah, I mean, you see her breath. Like
oh
that's
yeah.
real. That's not an effect. Like it was so cold that she could see her own breath.
Yeah, and the exterior of this hospital here is a school in real life. I wasn't able to visit it. I could. It was a little out of the way from the rest of the filming locations. I didn't have the time to get to it. But it is this whole shack here, this sort of entry point that she's about to go to was completely built for this movie and
Yes.
destroyed for this movie as well.
But they accidentally Tyler Main told me in a chat I had with him for this thing I wrote for Dread Central about H2. They accidentally had him tearing down a real guard shack at first. They mistakenly had him trying to tear down a real one. And apparently, Rob was like, "What's taking so long?" Because he was just
Yeah.
supposed to really tear through it. And they actually, I think, they might have forgotten to build the fake one. There was some, this production was so hurried, it was so hectic, it was so troubled.
Yeah. I had
Yeah.
heard that they did build one, but that they didn't kind of get the memo that it needed to be destroyed, so that it was basically like built to
Mm.
code.
Yeah. Oh
That's what I
wow.
heard. I don't know if that's true. Either way, I've heard the same thing, that he had quite a tough time getting through this thing, which
See
you can
that?
see. I mean, he's hitting it.
Yeah. And then every time he busts down a door, I think might have been like there's definitely a couple times he had to bust down real doors
Yeah.
in that kind of Kool-Aid man way
Yeah.
that he does. He's the only Michael Myers to do something like that, I think.
His donuts are getting all wet.
This guy's my
This
favorite
actor,
character. I
dude,
love this guy.
this
Buddy.
actor is great in everything. I am a big Office Space fan. He is very, very good in that movie. Um,
Who does he play in Office Space?
he's the jump to conclusions Matt guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool. I also remember him from Hatchet. He's the guy who gets his
he is in
jaw,
Hatchet. Hmm.
yeah, ripped apart in one of the most famous kills from that movie. Uh, is that him, or that might be his character's wife? But he's definitely one of the first kills.
He's definitely in there. And he's just one of those, character actors that shows up every once in a while, but he's so reassuring in this. And what I love, and this isn't spelled out, so I'm not spoiling anything, but his name is Buddy, and so is her bear,
Yeah,
her stuffed bear that
her
keeps her
stuffed bear
comfort
that
at
she
night.
sleeps with. Yeah, little details like that really show just how thought out these movies are. Like, it's not
Oh
just
yeah,
style over substance. Like, there's a real attention to detail that I've always admired about Rob's films. I mean, you can always see it in the production design, the cinematography, the look of the movie, but I think it's always there with the characters too. I mean, he really cares
yeah.
about his characters.
And the thought that goes into a lot of this movie. I mean, we'll be getting kind of into our own feelings about things that happen, but right here, especially the fact that, it does have the name of this bear and it's supposed to be her protector in this dream, right? But
Uh-huh.
sort of a moment where, and there's Nights in White Satin again. But it's almost like she feels safe with this bear with Buddy, right? And it's like her memories are attacking her safety. You know what I mean? And that's even worse.
I do kind of wonder what the movie would have been like if this hadn't been a dream, but if if this really was the beginning of the film, and it started off a different timeline. I feel like the movie could have turned out very differently, but I think it was a very conscious. It could have been a more traditional sequel. Like, I think it could have
Yeah.
been something that definitely delivered, at least for fans of of Rob's first movie, in a big way. But I think that's him telling you, like, do not expect even something that would be a logical continuation of my take on the Halloween movies. Like, I'm
Oh
really doing
yeah.
something different, so get ready for that. And I mean, it took people maybe 15 years, but I think people are coming around. I'm always trying to take the temperature of how people feel about Halloween too, and it's very tribal, it's very divisive, which I think will certainly be the case for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to find um, people, like really credible people in the horror space, who genuinely adore Halloween 2.
Yeah, it's
Um,
still 2.3 on Letterboxd as of the time of this recording, which is it's sad, but for me,
yeah.
I don't even really see it as disappointment because I don't bank my enjoyment of this movie on how other people feel about it. I think I actually sort of take a sense of pride in the fact that I see things in this movie that other people don't, and I think Oh man.
He's really
This
going to town on that guard check. I think it must be fake. I mean, I think him coming through the walls, I think you can start to tell that's fake. But he's also really um, he's having to tear down the whole thing by himself. Tyler,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't like a stunt team or anything. That's him going to town on it with an axe.
And as Gabe said earlier, like this man is a former pro wrestler. This isn't movie tricks that are making this guy look so huge. He's a big dude.
I mean, he's also Sabretooth from the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
So
And you can kind of see there they were running out of they were getting close to daylight. They were running out of nighttime at the end of that sequence there, which Rob has said was very difficult to get done before the sun started coming up.
and here we have, new Lori. I think about when that Taylor Swift song, Look What You Made Me Do, dropped, and she said, Old Taylor can't come to the phone right now because she's dead. That's, we have new Lori because old Lori can't come to the phone right now.
Yeah.
And she has like a rat tail. She has a tramp stamp. She has Charles Manson on her bedroom, which, according to Danielle Harris, was just something that Rob kind of came in and tagged himself when they were getting ready to shoot, because he was always just adding things of his own there. I don't know.
He
I
also
really buy that surviving what she survived can do this to a person.
It changes you. I
Yeah.
mean, it does. There are some people who go on with their life like nothing happened, or who heal. Everybody kind of heals in their own way, and I think this movie's kind of perfect for that because with Annie, she sort of becomes maternal, but she's kind of upset about it. Whereas Lori and even Loomis, basically take aspects of their character and turn them up to 100, while completely going against what they were in the previous
And
film.
then you have Brad Dourif being a complete angel, a total saint in the whole thing. This one kind of ray of light that's kind of like shining through a keyhole. Um, but it's there. Like there is like warmth to this movie. And something that I tried to make the case for was that this is also a hangout movie, which is a weird thing to say about something, a film that's like it's like exhausting,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's violent, it's mean, but I guess it's like between the atmosphere, the production design, um, these characters, and the moments when they do have downtime, or when they can um, kind of relax and let their guard down.
yeah. And we're about to get right here. As we get a glimpse into what their relationship looks like, we're about to get a part right here that was cut out of the theatrical version
It's a
that I
very
think
controversial.
really shows their relationship.
Yeah, but it's the thing that makes this interpretation of Laurie so rough around the edges for a lot of fans, which
Yeah,
makes sense. I mean, she's clearly a damaged person, and Rob's going to communicate that in his own kind of in his own way with a lot of volume, let's say.
yeah,
Um, I think, to me, taking these scenes out of context, and putting them in a review and saying, "Well, see, look at how annoying she is." Yeah, I acknowledge how aggravating it is out of context, but in context, like coming out of that dream sequence and just having a reminder of like what she is going through internally, that works, and that's storytelling in a more sophisticated way than I think what a lot of people would have the instinct to go for. I mean, you see in so many of these like slasher movies that kind of want to pay lip service to things like PTSD, and it's always kind of like spoon fed. And I think of like Halloween H2O, like she sees Michael appearing in the shop window, or she sees Michael walking down the hall, and that's fine for the summer movie that H2O wanted to be, the crowd pleaser wanted to
yeah,
be. Yeah,
absolutely.
but this is raw. This is very TCM 74.
Yeah, and speaking of Margot Kidder, who was in another big movie in 1974, Black Christmas, a movie I hold very near and dear to my heart.
The
Um,
progenitor to all of this, the progenitor
yeah.
to Halloween in so many ways.
And what I like about this is that you can see that, and this is something that I've learned in therapy is like sometimes you have to have your own issues explained to you because you can be in denial of them. And that's what she just was there. I know Michael Myers is dead. Well, they never found his body. So that's a hard time for you. It makes it difficult for you
Mm-hmm.
to rectify it. And I
Also,
like that they,
yeah, I'm really starting to appreciate the work they did on her scars on those
oh, they look
prosthetics.
fantastic.
Yeah, for some reason, this is the first time I'm really seeing that huge gash she has on her forehead. Her little Harry Potter, the boy who lived, uh, kind of scar there. But yeah, I mean, it is not flashy. It's not like a Tom Savini thing where you can uh, admire it. It's just there. It's there, for Scout, and it's there for the audience, who's paying attention. Like, wow, like really left a mark on that character. And here's a controversial little beat. I see a lot of people clowning on this.
We'll be saying that a lot throughout this movie. Here's another
Yeah.
controversial moment.
Um, Look, obviously, you don't have to be Michael Myers' sister to see two white horses in that Rorschach.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I also don't know how you can take the instruction of, yeah, it's gotta kind of look like a white horse in a Rorschach painting.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah,
And here's another controversial moment.
I
We get new
always waver
Loomis
on
though.
how much I want to defend this part of the
I'll defend it to
movie.
the death.
You'll defend it to the death. That's great.
Yeah.
I definitely would rather defend it to the death than completely disavow it. And I think a lot of that just comes down to how much I love Malcolm McDowell as an actor, and how much I do think he pulls this off. And
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it was his choice to at least do something radically different than the first movie. He said he did not want to repeat the performance that he had from the first movie. Uh, and Rob took Loomis and kind of made him very like Dr. Phil, or very like this product of a post 24 news cycle, culture vulture environment, which obviously is
Yeah.
probably the most offensive thing he could have done to that character. Everybody fucking loves that character. And if they made Donald Pleasance do this, that would that would be really odious.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, look, Donald Pleasance, he got his moment for Loomis to change and evolve. What I like about this change is that this right here is where I will defend it to the death because he is spelling out to you that he does not want to be the Loomis that feels somewhat responsible for Michael Myers, feels like he didn't do enough, feels like he failed, feels like he did so many things wrong in the situation. And so, and by the way, let's be clear with this too. There are short moments of his personality in the first one, in Rob's first Halloween remake, that show that kind of personality. And by the way, this here is in Madison, Georgia, this building. It's actually, at this time, it's like an antique mall. So you can go in and buy antiques at what is this, Uncle Meats?
yeah, of all fake coffee shops, I think I want to go to this one the most. Like, this is my
it's
central perk.
it's a little hippie for me, I think, but I can understand it. It actually looks completely different on the inside. They made it up to look completely different. That staircase is right next to like an opening, and they filled it here with a shelf. It looks completely different in there. It's a pretty big building too, but really cool play. I went inside and looked around, and I'm like, wow, I can't even recognize it. It's unrecognizable. So they did a good job at dressing it up and making it look like a real place that you can go visit.
And we get Laurie's new friends out with the old, in with the new. I really like Maya, the cashier girl.
I do too.
Think she's one of the more genuinely likable characters in this movie. Her other friend,
Here's Harley.
she's a little much. she's a little much.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, don't tell me that if you went to high school, you didn't know a girl who acted like that. So it's just, I mean, she has very minimal screen time. I think she's really just there to kind of like balance out this group dynamic.
I also think she's there to show. I think they're there to show sort of like Laurie's evolution because the blonde, she's got a good character. She's nicer than Harley is, but she is still kind of this new wild girl that Laurie is portraying herself to be, and Harley is the extreme version of that. She's loud, she's delinquent, she's got her issues, and so I think they are sort of like both sides of what Laurie kind of is fighting, sort of fighting to pretend she is. And I kind of like that we have one that's kind of more, measured.
Well, going back to Scumbag Loomis, imagine using like an interview with your, serial killer patient, as
Yeah.
like the hype footage for your book tour. So yeah, I mean, this is like I think I used Dr. Phil. I mean, there were a lot of characters like this. I think Rob mentioned the author of that famous Manson family true crime book,
Yeah.
but by 2009, these kind of characters, these kind of grifters were all over the medium, and I mean we're still stuck with that. So I think
Yeah.
this is actually aged a little better because I can really
It's worse
see
now, honestly.
it's much worse now.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you can imagine this version of Sam Loomis, being a speaker at a certain presidential candidate's rally. It has aged better in that respect. I can really see what's being satirized. I don't even think people interpret it as satire on anything. I think they just saw it as an affront and a troll on, their beloved character. But you see, this is also like, an important thing that was cut from the theatrical version is like, this pretentious little like, well, what he quotes some fancy big wig,
Yeah.
and has this kind of moment where people challenge him and he kind of he dials down the persona a little bit. You see maybe more of the genuine side of Loomis, but they cut all that out for the theatrical. So he really had no dimension in the theatrical cut.
You get a little bit of it here. And what I like about this is like he's taken off guard and he has to dial it down a little bit. He's dialed up his arrogance so that he pushes himself away. But you can kind of see like he doesn't believe what he's saying right here. He speaks differently. Um,
I'm not a psychic Sherlock Holmes playing Superman, which
yeah.
is uh it could have been improvised. So there's actually a lot more improv that goes into Rob's films than uh than I think people realize. But I can also see that as a Rob, yeah, again saying we're not doing that character. I know the character that you guys want, we're not doing it. And there he is again. Michael has the best introductions in this movie.
Well, this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the first time we're really seeing like full Hobo Myers in this movie,
That
which
is the intro of Hobo Myers, which you can see the moment, the exact still where
yeah.
people turn on this movie for good, when he
Yeah.
turns just slightly from the camera and people can see the shadow of his beard.
Well, they
I,
see that he's not wearing the mask. I mean, just the fact that you can see, because in the beginning you can see that he's got that long beard poking under his mask still, but when you
I,
get close enough to see that there's no mask on,
I
it's
don't think
done.
it's that he's not wearing a mask that people found so unforgivable. It's that I
Oh
mean,
my
you
God.
see his face in this beautiful fucking shot, but you see his
Amazing
face.
shot.
Yeah. You see just how Rob Zombieified he is. Because Michael didn't always wear masks in the previous movies, but if he didn't,
Yeah.
we either didn't see his face or we saw it to a very limited extent. Although it's really funny to me just how clear of a shot we get of his face in the very first movie, but for some reason it's still this hard rule that we can't see his face in any of the others. We saw it, I mean, in a perfectly clear shot
Yeah.
in the very first movie.
Here's Mark Boone Jr.
One of the greats. Love
Yeah,
that guy.
he's been in so many things, and he's one of many, I think, in this movie that you can just spot throughout, of just people who pop up now and again in movies that you're just, they always make some sort of an impression, whether you like it or not. And by the way, we go from one beautiful shot of Michael, of the hallucination, or the imagination of Michael's mother, to right here, which is like, I believe the score here is sort of alludes to UFOs, of this truck sort of looking otherworldly behind
Well,
Michael.
that's I
Just
mean
beautiful.
that's what Rob said in his commentaries. He wanted this almost UFO, this almost alien lighting scheme. And look,
Yeah.
I've been blowing this movie. I'm going to continue to blow this movie, but I really can't overstate just how iconic to me this is. Like
Yeah.
in my head canon, this is uh one of the most celebrated frames of a slasher movies. Like this
Yeah.
silhouetted shot with the three of them, and
And I'll
it,
say this, you said earlier about depictions of Illinois. Most of what you saw so far, Southern Illinois could certainly pass for it, but accents aren't quite this strongly Southern in Southern Illinois. There's still a little flat, you know. They're still a little, they're not quite
do we know for a
like I saw
fact
in
that
Georgia.
do we know for a fact that this Haddonfield is in Illinois? Is that actually ever stated?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
They
it
have
is.
Illinois
Oh,
license plates
damn.
and flags and all that stuff. So
Well,
but I will say,
that's
like, Southern
hilarious.
Illinois, you know, a lot of people when they think of Illinois, they think of Chicago, which is basically where most of the population is. But Southern Illinois is much more close to, I mean, it's close to states like Kentucky and Missouri and Tennessee.
Now, to be
So
fair, Michael might not be in Illinois right now. I mean, he might because he has to. He's been wandering the earth this whole time, so he actually might not be in Illinois.
we
If I
don't know
can
where
offer
Haddonfield
a
is on the Illinois map.
yeah,
You know, it could be a border town by Missouri, or, you know, something similar. So, oh, see, I never liked that kill. This
I
one I
can't.
like a
You
lot,
can't
though.
see it very well that
Yeah,
when he slashes the eyes.
the effect's not great either. It's the one time in this movie that I can see enough of an effect to know I don't like it.
Yeah,
But this right here, oof, you see that aggression. You can hear him grunting with every stab. Look at that
the
shot, dude.
grunts. It's amazing how such a basically subtle choice can redefine a character. I mean, that really puts Michael Myers in a completely different um, context. Just the mere fact that he grunts when he kills people.
And what's really cool about this one particular is that he put his mask on to kill these people, and it's what I really want people to think about when they watch this movie, is that, you know, Rob's version very clearly spelled out in the first movie. He puts his mask on when he's about to do something that he doesn't think his mother would approve of, mainly killing people, because that's what he does when he kills the lady in the cafeteria, and it's what he does later on in the movie. He always puts the mask on. So I like that he's not,
Starving
you
like
know,
Marvin.
he's always talking to his mother with the mask off, but
Yeah, this is what I mean when I say this is a hangout movie, or it's a hangout movie
yeah.
when it wants to be. I like this. This reminds me of like a classic Tarantino exchange or something of that kind of school of creating characters, coloring characters with kind of silly but also very relatable conversations like that. And again, I don't know if this was scripted or improvised. I could believe either or. I could definitely imagine Rob saying like, "I definitely want you to bring up Lee Marvin. I just work Lee Marvin in there somehow." Lee Marvin was one of the inspirations for William Forsythe's performance in The
Yeah.
Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, and I want to say too, really bold choice to take an actor like this, right? And make him, not only in the first movie, he's Sheriff Brackett, right? But in this one, he's more so like the dad than
Oh,
he
he is
is
the
the
dad.
sheriff.
Yeah,
And it's really cool how we get to see that aspect of him. And I like that this scene isn't just meant to be like, oh, here's some throwaway dialogue to get to know our characters. It's that, but it also serves a purpose right here of this connection that is growing between Laurie and Michael.
Now, why do people get so mad that Michael eats a dog in this movie? I mean, I thought that was canon from the very beginning. Are
I think
people
it's
just
just
mad
the
that they
graphic
see
nature
it?
of it. Yeah, I think
You
that's
can't
what
see
it
it that
is.
well. I mean,
You know,
it was intentionally obscure, I think.
I think when for maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like people are constantly looking for reasons to cheer for the killer. Like they don't like when they make the killer this sort of like monster. I mean, they like when they're a monster, but not when they can't. Oh
But when
God,
they're a
that's such a
cool
graphic.
monster that only
Yeah.
kills annoying people, obnoxious people, uh,
Yes. Yeah. And they don't like when they take them to the point where they're irredeemable, like a, Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Um, you know,
I mean, child murdering we can forgive,
but
but
but child molesting, no, sir.
no, I understand
Um,
it's the visceral quality of
right.
seeing it on
Yes, yes.
screen.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Or
literally
spelling
don't
it
see
out
anything on
directly.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the original film. Oh, we're about to get. This is
Oh
where
my
I
God.
would say this movie gets Lynchian. People don't like that comparison because that's me comparing supposedly a very smart filmmaker with a very dumb filmmaker. I get a lot of raised eyebrows when I say that, but I mean, well, how can you argue with you? You couldn't put this in Twin Peaks. You couldn't put this in Mulholland Drive. Yes, you could.
And I'll get this out of the way now. If you're not ready to hear us glazing up Rob Zombie throughout this, you're in the wrong spot. Rob is a top 10 director for me. His movies are definitely for me. So there will be plenty of Rob Zombie glazing. I will say though, I do like Sherry. I don't like her performance as Ghost Mom. I
I
think
don't
she
even
took
know
it a
what
little
kind of
too
performance
far.
she's supposed to give.
Yeah,
I almost wish she didn't have lines, and that's not a shot at her. I just think she's more effective
yeah.
as a visual.
I almost wish that Michael talked to her,
So
but we
cool.
didn't
This
hear
is
her
so
talk.
cool. People complain about this. Absolute virgins complain about this. They don't want to see creative shit. That's something that I have a bone to pick with so much of the hatred I see at this movie. Like people
Yeah,
complaining about just kind of like embellishing a creative instinct. I mean,
right.
I'm not saying that any of the stuff that came before isn't creative. I mean, there's a lot of creativity in the original. I mean, it's a fucking
I mean, in the
classic
whole franchise,
in
yeah.
the whole franchise. But something about like the decision to almost prioritize that over the functionality of being a slasher movie,
Yeah.
prioritizing that above the formula, because that doesn't accomplish anything for the formulaic what we want of slashers, which is a very specific and narrow thing. So it's you got to be in a different kind of mood. uh oh, what a cool shot. I also think there's a real zen quality for all of these nature shots with Michael, like
Yeah.
um to see him going from like brutally butchering people to kind of communing with nature. It's like Zen and the art
Yeah.
of Michael Myers stabbing Mark Boone Jr. with a pair of deer antlers.
Yeah. And by the way, not that it shocks anybody, but not only is this house look completely different, at least as of a few years ago when I went to see it. You can tell by the layout what it is, but it's obviously, repainted and people live there. But it's also, this house is right down the road from where they shoot a lot of the rest of this movie. And I mean, like, you could walk there from the opening shot of Laurie walking down the street to this house is 2 or 3 minutes, which is really cool. It's kind of cool that they literally just shot this throughout these two smaller towns. There's a couple differences. The hotels in Buckhead, actually the shot we saw of now entering Haddonfield, Rob said he shot that at his house in Connecticut. It was the lone shot that was not shot on location.
Selling the sizzle, not selling the steak.
Well, if I want your opinion, I'll beat it out of you. Good
Yeah.
Lord. I love
Actually, I
it.
will defend this to the death.
Yeah.
He has some of Malcolm McDowell's best moments are in that one scene. just
Yeah.
happened. I really like the shamelessness of it for sure. Now, does that make his turn back to the good side less believable? I don't know. I don't really. I don't.
I don't think it
Uh,
does. I think it's like he has that's his come to like he can justify it right now because there is no threat of Michael Myers doing anything else. The threat to him is gone, so now he can work on distancing himself from it. But when he sees that it's not gone, and not only do I still feel like I'm at fault, but now I feel like I have to fix this. I really think that it's like a come to Jesus moment, and this dream sequence I love. It's
really cool callback to the
expertly
first
done.
movie,
Yes.
to Rob's first movie, obviously.
Well, yes. And the way that they get it almost perfect.
And I think people misinterpret the scene a little bit. They think that that Laurie is such a bitch that she's gleefully fantasizing about murdering her best friend. When no, this is an episode. This is an attack, which you can see from her reaction. I can't remember how
Mhm.
they execute this in the theatrical cut, but her reaction to
It's
this,
pretty similar.
yeah. I mean, what I like is that not only is Michael literally physically getting closer to her, making his way back to Haddonfield, but like, what he represents mentally to her, you
Yeah.
know, is, oh, you can see the flashes from the screen on my wall. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
watch this if you have, if you're prone to seizures.
Yeah.
But
This part right here with with her sort of bleeding blood with the upside down cross on her head, that's the one part that I'm like, that's a little too Rob for me. It doesn't fit as well as everything else
it's a little
does.
too music video. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I do think that one thing that's also cool about it is that the scene in the original Halloween is Michael basically taking out the constant reminder that his life is terrible, the constant source of issues in his life. And that dream sequence that she's sort of forced into there, her constant reminder of everything that happened to her, she is doing the same thing to. And so it's even a little deeper. It's almost like her brain is using it against her, and it's really
There's
Daniel
Daniel
Roebuck.
Roebuck,
God, I
who
love that
has
guy.
the briefest of cameos in the first movie because I think most of his
Yes.
footage got cut out. But Rob loves working with his friends so much that he said, "Come on back for the sequel, and I'll give you a whole damn scene. I'll give you a whole scene where a stripper does a little lap dance for you, and you get to tell off Jeff Daniel Phillips, which I'm really excited to get to his part again."
And this scene is really important too because it shows how Lori really has issues figuring out her emotions because she's trying to suppress
I
them
know,
so
right?
much.
And
It's
this is what
so
I'm talking
perfect.
about. This is what I'm talking about, though. People complain about this. People are like, what's going on with the editing in this scene? Doesn't Rob Zombie know how to edit movies? Is
Yeah,
he
you're
trying
supposed
to
to be in
capture
her
her mental
frantic
state
mind.
with is he trying to capture her mental state or something? She should just tell us that she's feeling bad. She should just kind of act like it. Rob should not be trying to do something fancy with his camera work or with his editing to convey that to us.
And here's what's really important too is like Lori is describing a good day, but it throws her into not only a panic, but also like a manic state. And that's something that I have direct
Mm-hmm.
knowledge of. This has happened to me.
Oh
This has
yeah,
directly happened to me before.
yeah,
It's
no.
very realistic and almost disturbingly so.
Oh yeah, I mean the tragedy of it is that she doesn't have a hero's journey. She doesn't overcome this. I mean, she succumbs to this state. It just deepens and worsens.
Yeah.
Which I think if she, I don't know if she had her hero's moment at the end where she did overcome it, it would have made for a much more rewarding experience. Would have made it much more Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
But I think that could have betrayed, I think, the Greek tragedy that's being played here.
I think that's what I like about it is so many Halloweens have.
Oh, here comes like my favorite shot. When I showed this movie to my wife, when I like forcibly showed this
Yeah.
movie to her, that was one thing that she did. That she did give this movie is how damn good of a shot this was. that drone
Yeah.
kind of footage
They probably
of
had to get that with a helicopter back then, you think?
yeah, we're was drone footage
I don't
industry standard back in
I
2009?
don't
That's a good question.
yeah, I don't know. This right here.
And of course, we have, I think, to me, the line of the movie, freaks always find their way home. I mean, if
Whew.
if every movie has that line that really kind of sums it up, that that's definitely the line to remember from here. And it's obviously setting up that he is going to break the promise he made in the first movie, that he is going to uh, dish all the secrets in his little tell-all book.
Here's an interesting tidbit. That band was fake. It was made for this movie, and they did a whole album. There's a whole album from Captain Clegg and the Night Creatures.
Yeah,
That is, they only exist in this world.
you hear some of their songs in the soundtrack, in the official
Yes, you
Halloween
do.
soundtrack, which I
Hmm.
have on a vinyl.
Ah, yeah. And this scene, again, really important because their relationship is so volatile. And this is Annie kind of reminding Laurie she's not the only one.
It's also funny to think that there is I think, a pretty big age gap between Danielle and Scout. I mean, there definitely is. I think Danielle's probably at least, she's probably 5 or 6 years older. Because Scout was the only
Oh,
actual
no, I mean, Scouts, I mean, there's a pretty big generational divide between them from what I understand. I'll verify that, but
although Danielle really passes for a high schooler
she
in Rob's
does.
first movie, which is pretty funny.
That's because she's amazing. So Danielle was born in 77,
All
and
right,
Scout was born in, let's see.
all hail Jeff Daniel Phillips. Like,
Yes.
with one nameless character, he steals the show. I mean, no
Scout was
wonder.
born in
Like,
89. So they're 12 years
are you
apart.
saying Scout was born the year that Halloween 5 came out?
Yep.
That is hilarious. Okay.
But yeah, so this is to my knowledge the first time that Jeff Daniel Phillips also appeared in a Rob Zombie picture. He's been
For
in
sure.
several since then. He is Rob's most one of Rob's most recent efforts, Three from Hell. And he was Herman Munster in Rob's Munsters movie.
And I guess I'm in the minority. I think he was a lovely Herman Munster. I love the hell out of Jeff Daniel Phillips. I'm really excited to see how much he continues to rise. He made his directorial debut recently.
He's also back as the Geico Caveman.
Yeah.
He's still doing commercials as the Geico
Hey
Caveman.
man, he must get fat stacks
Oh
from
my
that
God,
gig.
yeah.
So
He's a
yeah, good
really
on
nice
him.
guy too. He's I've had some interactions with him online. Very brief. I don't know him by any means, but very nice guy. Daniel Roebuck as well. From everybody who's ever met him has great things to say about him.
Oh yeah.
And that's a trend with a lot of these actors that appear in Rob Zombie pictures. Is they not only are they sort of a family on the set, but they seem to be very well liked at conventions and such. God, that little punch right there always gets me. His line
Yeah.
coming up here too, hit the bricks, Dorothy. That gets me too.
I mean, that's when you know that uh, an actor has an it factor, when they can create such a memorable moment without any line of dialogue.
Yeah. Oh
And who
yeah.
knows if that was something that Rob told him to do, or if that was
Yeah, I
just
know.
an instinct. But yeah, I mean, literally off the strength of this performance, Rob wanted to cast him as Herman Munster, even though Jeff Daniel Phillips was just the Geico caveman at this point.
That was pretty much all he was known for. And he would go on to be, I mean, he's been in, I'm trying to think here. I think he's been in every Rob Zombie picture since this. He was in Lords of Salem, which came next. He was
He
in
was from
31,
31.
Three from Hell, and The Munsters.
Yeah.
So he's been in every Rob Zombie movie since Halloween 2. Um, and he seems to love working with him, and he's great.
So how do we feel about Michael not wearing his mask as he kills Jeff Daniel Phillips?
This honestly, this one kind of bothers me a little. And it doesn't bother me a whole lot because he's sort of justified. He gets attacked first. That's how I like to look at it. But he did put his mask on before killing people earlier when he was attacked first.
I mean,
So,
obviously he's going to kill Jeff Daniel Phillips. There's not
oh yeah, oh yeah.
there's that intention is there from the
I
start.
I just sort of wish that when Jeff hits him and he throws Jeff to the ground, I wish he would have put the mask on before he before Jeff meets his end, which we'll see in a
Yeah.
moment here. Which, by the way, stolen in Halloween 2018.
I'm not going to say stolen. I mean, this movie didn't invent the concept of,
No, no,
curb stomping, but
they did it first.
they did it first and they did it best. And
I will
that's
agree.
the
I think they
reality.
did it better.
Yeah.
I do think they did it better in this. I
I mean,
think they did it
this
well
one
in
is
2018.
painful. Yeah. I mean, the 2018 one is like,
Yeah, this one makes me cringe.
that pops like a cherry.
Oh, the
But
hand twitching too. Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
And just imagine a 7-foot man stomping on your face.
No.
Like
Yeah, not a
it makes
fan.
me like lick my teeth to make sure they're all still there.
Yeah, I know. It makes my face hurt. Like I can feel it.
Yeah, see, I don't mind like, just a subtle thing like the camera panning over to Sherry and little Michael, they're all there. Like they don't have to say anything.
So I think little Michael should be talking. I feel like she should just be looking, and like Michael should be talking almost to himself at her. Because she really was in a lose-lose here. Like, how do you maintain the warmth that Michael feels about his mother while being a spooky ghost? Like you just can't do it.
I think she should show up briefly. Yeah, I think things just get really complicated when you introduce the idea of her talking, of little Michael talking back to her. That's when it starts getting a little unwieldy, but I think it's worth it for the visual. I don't hate it or anything. I mean, I know that's one of the things that people hate the most about this movie, and it
Yeah.
definitely doesn't get that kind of primal reaction from me. It might not be a choice that worked out in every
Oh,
instance,
that
but
shot is so good.
oh man, I think he had to duck through that door frame.
He did a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, like whenever I think of Michael Myers, I always think of like some shot from this movie, or maybe Rob's first movie, but no, he's never been lit better. Like
So the first, and weirdly enough, the first thing that comes into my head when I think of Michael Myers is the shot in the original Halloween 2, where he kind of appears very slowly behind the nurse and injects some air
even
into
though
her
that's a
veins.
complete ripoff from the shot in the first movie.
Yeah, I think it's done better, honestly. But
All right.
that's what comes up first. But then this movie comes up, and we're about to get to another very controversial part of this movie. Um, as Carnage takes over the Rabbit in Red.
Yeah, you can beat a woman to a pulp in a horror movie, but you can't be naked. I guess. I mean, I understand. I mean, obviously, it's just about whether or not you trust the director. I mean, if this woman was comfortable being naked, as I assume she was,
This
because
is
that,
brutal, by the
yeah,
way.
that's the role that she signed up for.
There it is. Half of the mask has just been torn from Michael's face.
Awesome. That's great. And that really captures the duality of this version of the character. And what I kind of like is that Laurie and Michael are on a convergent path. Like she's getting more like Michael, and Michael is,
He's getting more. He's returning to what he was before that night on
is he
Halloween.
is he getting more human than human though?
More human than human. It's possible, but I like it too because so the reason that I can justify the non-mask when Jeff Daniel Phillips is killed is because you can actually see it happening. Like he's getting more and more. He's regressing.
Yeah.
To himself.
Is this the first and maybe only? I guess it's not the only now because I think Ents does this too. But was it the first to not take place solely on Halloween and the night before? Like we've actually spanned a couple days now, which is definitely rare for one of these movies.
Yeah, I think we see more. time in this than we did in the other movies. I feel like we either picked up on or the day before.
Now, obviously, in Rob's first movie, it spanned like 17 years. If when you take into account the section in
Yeah.
Smith's
I mean, the
Grove.
beginning of this movie is on Christmas. So, like, this, by the way, looks a lot similar. That street there, that like real Louisiana place. I mean, it looks exactly. At least when I went, it looks exactly like that. And from what Rob said, the bookstore that they built was actually in what used to be a bookstore, and everybody in the town was trying to go there because they thought the bookstore was back, and they were really excited about it. And it was just here for this. God, the decorations though, I think are perfect. Some people have an issue telling when this is. I think it's pretty clear that it's late 90s, early 2000s. Does that come across to you as easy as it does for some?
I don't put it in a strict timeline. I think I think it's intentionally left ambiguous. I could imagine that the first one is late
Oh,
70s. That would make this early 90s. I think there is a flat screen TV towards the end.
yeah.
Um, I just don't. Again, this
It is
movie
pretty
is
timeless.
it's a vibe, is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, it
By the
takes
way,
yeah.
we haven't mentioned this yet. I just want to throw this in there. This part of the score right here, it's called "I'm Angel Myers," I believe is this track's name. We talked about some of the music in this, but I don't think we've talked about just how great it is, especially when you listen to it isolated. You maybe
Oh
can't
yeah.
tell throughout the movie, but it is a great score, one of the best in my mind.
No, Tyler Bates killed it with. I mean, he's a great composer in general, and I really love
Yeah.
his work on both Halloween movies. I
Ah,
really love his version of the Halloween theme, which, of course, is famously or infamously absent, uh, basically in all of the director's cut, except for the credits, and I support that decision.
I also support that decision.
It might
I
upset Mr. Carpenter, who felt the need to shit on Rob Zombie
just let that
again.
bitter old man like play his video games and go away. Yeah, I love John Carpenter. He's one of my 10 favorite directors of all time, along with Rob. But he just he's just a little too bitter, man. He
What
just
Yeah, what I think is so ironic is that John Carpenter
you're
remade
the man.
John Carpenter remade The Thing, right? And the director of the
Yeah,
original Thing, Howard, or maybe Howard Hawks just produced The Thing, but the director of that
whoever it was.
movie,
Yeah,
yeah, which is such a big movie for John Carpenter, he hated John Carpenter's The Thing. He said
yeah,
terrible things about it, and I just think it's interesting that this cycle, I guess, of like directors shitting on each other's remakes. And I know obviously I'm comparing something that's considered the best remake to what I guess a lot of people think is one of the worst. But just when you look at that chain of like these directors just shitting on these up and coming
yeah.
filmmakers reimagining their works, I just think it's funny, and I'm sure it comes with the territory.
And here's a really important scene in my mind, showing it's confronting him with his responsibility in this as well,
Yeah,
or
this is a great
at least
scene.
his sense
Yeah,
of responsibility.
yeah, the performances are there. I think it's pretty realistic. I mean,
Oh,
a
100%.
man this upset, I think he would go to very extreme lengths to confront the man who exploited his daughter's
And I
death.
love the note that the gun wasn't loaded,
Mhm.
because it almost makes it seem like he was I don't it almost makes it seem like he was going there with the intention of scaring Loomis and
Yeah,
maybe not making it out. I mean, if you take out a gun in public, you kind of know that can go bad for you when it's not loaded. So I think that was really
it was definitely an
interesting
act of
choice.
desperation,
Yeah.
and I mean, you know, I think Americans like to express themselves with guns. I think that's a well documented fact.
And I like this here because he sort of he's as Michael is getting closer to what he used to be, Loomis is having to confront his feelings about it, and is sort of you
Yeah.
see it wearing on him that he's pretending to be this person as the movie goes on.
Now
And
tell
another
me,
great scene.
who can tell me with a straight face that at the very least this movie doesn't handle the reveal of um Laurie's relationship to Michael better than the original Halloween 2. I mean, who could tell
Oh
me
my
that with a
God.
straight face? I mean, I don't think anybody would actually try to do that, but
Well, I mean, Laurie doesn't even find out in Halloween 2.
and aren't people bothered by that? Like, I mean, is there nothing else that screams I was drunk when I wrote this more than that decision?
Hey, you're talking to the wrong guy about that, but I do think
It's a
that
documented fact. It's a self-confessed fact that he drunk off of Miller Lite or something when he wrote that script.
by the way, people are also very much living in this home. When I went, it appeared that they were running a business out of there, and you can't get very close. There's a gate
Oh, she's taking Buddy.
at the road. She is taking Buddy, yeah.
Yeah, never noticed that. That must be a really important stuffed animal to her.
And I love that line. Please tell me you didn't know. Oof.
The angel says, "Fuck you," and is that something that Robin came up with? That real her biological name, her born name is
Yeah.
Angel. Yeah,
Rob came up with that, and from my understanding, it was to juxtapose
yeah.
with Michael being
Oh,
the
for
devil,
sure.
being hailed the devil. She's the angel.
But it's also totally something that a stripper would name her baby daughter.
It is. Yeah, it is. I love this guy. Oh man, last time she kicked me in the nuts.
Which is that guy looks so much like Tim Walz. That is so funny. Is that Tim Walz stealth campaigning in Georgia? Oh, by the way, this is filmed in Georgia, so we need to start predicting who's a Trump voter and who's a Harris voter.
Filmed in Georgia.
Now, I wonder, was this filmed in Georgia because of the tax incentives? Because I thought I started hearing about them later, like
Um,
around 2015.
I think this was sort of the beginning of it. Like, so Georgia at the time, I didn't live in Georgia when this was filmed. It was a couple years later. But I think Georgia was like really trying to because they had a lot of locations that just seemed kind of prime, but it didn't start picking up until a little later.
Man,
Television was getting big around this time there, though.
I get so envious of like the apartments in horror movies. Just
I
like
know.
these people, I guess, just all constantly live in a horror movie. That is so cool. The lighting, the
I
decorations.
know.
God, the actress playing Harley reminds me so much of another actress. I don't know who. I mean, maybe she reminds me of a young Aubrey Plaza. I'm not sure.
Could be. And I love that her having to confront, like, she's already pretending to be somebody else, but she's not even who she was before that. It's,
Wow. Yeah, if somebody told me that they were the relative of a missing serial killer, I'm not sure if I would go to a Halloween party with them. Probably wouldn't, in all honesty. I would be like, we can hang out at a very well lit area that has a ton of security.
well, I do like that this Mia or Maya, I do like that she takes this more seriously than Harley does. Harley's like, let's do it. Let's party. That's how I
Maya's a
cope
good
with it.
friend.
And
Maya's a
Maya's
good
like,
friend.
I don't think this is, I always sense that Maya knew that this really isn't who Lori is, but,
There's Chris Hardwick
and Weird
from
Al.
returning from House of a Thousand Corpses, obviously, and
Yes.
Weird Al. I wonder what that conversation went
I
like.
know. I wonder how he feels about this movie because he's you don't really hear a lot about Weird Al's opinions. I
I
love
mean,
Mr. Weird there too. Mr. Weird?
I don't think he has a strong opinion on
Probably
Rob
not.
Zombie's
No, probably
interpretation
not.
of the Halloween mythology.
Who knows? Maybe he's a big horror hound.
Wow. I guess it really bothers people the humor in this scene, but you get Weird Al. I mean, he's like, this is going to be a missed opportunity if he doesn't play around like this. And I like the fact that we have such a wholesome character like Weird Al in
Yeah.
the movie. This skeezy.
And I think this is perfect because he was on national television and his facade is waning.
Oh yeah, the whole thing
It's
is
it's crashing
crumbling
down.
down. It's actually
Yeah.
it parallels really well with Lori because her mental state is deteriorating, and I feel like this whole persona that Loomis has built for himself to cope with what happened, that's crumbling. That's breaking down. With every scene
So
now.
a lot of times in movies, they'll just film all over the place. That street that he was on is literally the street that's right next to this fence that they're shooting in front of now. So it's why I feel like the continuity of the area works so well. When I'm walking around, I'm like, really? They're all this close to each other? Can we be friends?
All right, you keep talking. I'll be right back.
Yep. Man. Now this scene, I always look at this one uh as sort of interesting. And this is sort of what I alluded to earlier here, where you sort of have the angel and the devil on her shoulder here, kind of telling her maybe this isn't good for you to go out and get drunk and party after a bombshell like that. Um, but Harley, being the bad influence, still still wants to go out and party. Down for the party. I think it helps Lori already being drunk. She's already drinking away her problems, already different than what she used to be. And here we enter the coolest Halloween party of all time. And this was shot in a pretty inaccessible location. At the time that I visited these filming locations, as we see Jeff Daniel Phillips in another role in this movie, kind of hidden. I mean, if you know Jeff enough, you'll be able to see it. But man, is that not just one of the coolest Halloween parties ever? You got strippers and a live band, the coolest decorations you've ever seen. This has got to be the coolest Halloween party ever.
Yeah, I've never been to a Halloween party as happening as this one. Oh,
Strippers
there
are
are
twerking.
strippers at this party. I don't think I've
100%, yeah.
realized that. Yeah, definitely not
On
been
this terror
to a
train.
party that went that hard.
Transylvania terror train.
Oh, that was a cool edit with the
Yeah,
the lighting to the police siren.
yeah. And I like I can't say enough good things about Danielle. And I know that I'm biased. Danielle was of course in Halloween 4 and 5, which are the movies that truly changed my life and the trajectory of my life moving forward. But she's just so good in everything. I can't fathom why her career has been so limited. As far as the things that she's been into a single genre, I feel like, I mean, she was in other things, debating Robert Lee, and there are other movies that she's been in. But after once she
Don't
became
tell
an
mom the
adult,
babysitter's dead. I think
yeah, she was in
that's
a
another
Disney
one.
original with Katherine Heigl called Wish Upon a Star. She has a pretty robust filmography, but much of it ended in her adulthood. And I don't know if that was by choice. Maybe she, prefers the horror world, but I always found it sort of sad that she, even in Quentin Tarantino, always wanted to use her in a movie, and the best that we were able to see in his filmography was a cameo, a very pregnant Danielle Harris in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
Um,
really? No kidding.
yes, she's a part of the cult, which is really interesting. But I like this werewolf guy a lot. I like him a lot, actually.
Yeah, he actually comes across as like not a terrible dude. Like I'm always expecting the dudes at the parties in horror movies to be date rapists
Oh
or
yeah,
the like. But he even says they're roofie free. I swear.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think my favorite thing about that party was the that statue with that pumpkin head.
Oh my
Jesus.
God. And I was saying too, while you took a step away for a moment there, I went to that location and they were doing construction on the road around there, so I wasn't able to see all of it. But even with that, like you can't understand the full scope of this part, like how they made this. Like you can't see it when you're there. It's just not there.
What I love is that this terrible, awful routine from
Uncle
Jeff
Seymour
Daniel
Coffin.
Phillips is basically on par with every comedian with a podcast these
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I could really
Hell
see
no,
like
Blondie.
okay, Andrew Scholes could say that, Tony Hinchcliffe could say that, anybody who goes on to kill Tony could say that,
I could
but
see Casey Rocket saying that too.
they don't have Jeff Daniel Phillips swag, so
Well,
it
I
wouldn't even
like it
come
too
close.
because it's clear that they're trying to show that like here's this host and he has gotten absolutely shit faced and now he's just ruining the party. Like you have a live band. Um, I love the awkwardness of this scene.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
very believable.
Oh,
Uh
very believable. Very believable. If you're an awkward dude, you have been or you know somebody who has been in this exact situation.
Now I haven't been in this exact situation wearing such a cool werewolf
No, 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 no.
mask,
I mean that
so he's actually
he's
one upped me in a
yeah,
pretty
he's got
big
one
way.
up on me. I was about to
Yeah.
say in the back of a shag carpeted van with the coolest Halloween mask ever. Man, that seems like a good point for me to take a pee break. BRB, brother.
What I think is funny about this is that it gets close to it basically is a nod to like, oh, if I were making a traditional slasher movie, it would be a lot like this. Like, you know, you have the sex. Oh wait, one of them has to go away and do something or other, and then boom, you know, Michael attacks, and that is a beat that could come out of you know, any other type of slasher movie, and we get a little bit of that here, and it could be Rob throwing a bone to folks. You know, we need to start getting that body count up. But I also think that he is trying to isolate Lori from her friends, from anything that could be uh, that could take her away from him, because all he's trying to do is reunite with her. And that's basically what he was trying to do in Rob's first movie. You know, he killed Linda. You know, kind of used Annie as bait. And yeah, it's also just not a lot of people like Kool-Aid Man Michael. I do. I love every time he pops out of somewhere, busts through somewhere. Somehow Tyler Maine, the man mountain that he is, can fit through that tiny window. And yeah, a remarkably ungory death for this. You know, he usually likes to escalate things pretty sharply through his films, but just a strangulation. And she was fully clothed this time, so she got off better
Yeah.
than Linda did in the first movie.
Still lots of terror in it too, though. It's not like it's not short of scare factor, you know?
You got snapped on by Weird Al.
I'd love to get snapped on by Weird Al.
Come on our podcast, Weird Al.
There's
You can
Michael
snap
Myers
on
being
us
compared to a shark again.
with his baggy overalls.
Michael Myers isn't a soundbite.
Why did it take like 7, 8,
Oh,
9 movies before somebody finally did the obvious and make a Mike Myers joke? Why did it take so long? Were they
I don't
scared?
know. I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot of efforts during like or during Mike Myers' peak, you know? Like Resurrection and
I guess
H20
his
were.
yeah. But
I
you
would
would
say
think,
Halloween 6 would have been, but they weren't self-aware enough at that point in time.
don't you think H2O, the Scream clone that it was, don't you think
That
they
one's
would have?
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't get a little meta with it, right?
At the same
This
time,
scene right here,
yeah.
this shot is so cool with her, she's still with that. Oh man, like
That's the
how do
thing.
you even think of a shot like that,
Call Me
dude?
Shallow. I think how cool it looks always trumps how stupid it might be. I mean, it's not logical. It's not playing, but it's also clearly not meant to be,
But it serves the story,
literal.
right?
Yeah,
Like
it
it
serves the
shows their
story.
connection getting closer. That's the whole point of this, is that it's happening when she's more and more awake and aware, and it's about to come to a head. It's about to, meet its climax, and I like that a lot.
And I get that the first movie presented itself as really grounded, like Rob's first movie.
Yeah.
And this is going for it's almost a ghost story. It practically is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
But
very
I,
much.
what I would say to that is, if you're going to bring back Michael Myers from the dead, because I mean that's what he would be if he got shot in the head. He would be dead. Let's actually embrace, I think, the surrealism that comes from that, and let's not keep pretending that we're dealing with the perfectly normal, grounded,
Hmm.
world here. So that's the way I justify it, and it is a justification that I have to make to enjoy it. Other people
Huh.
don't want to, don't that they're not with the movie enough to do that. So I get that, and
Yeah.
most of my justifications for this movie are always going to come down to some kind of a personal, uh, just an affection I have and my willingness to go along with it.
I've loved
But
this
we're about
scene
to
right
get one of
here.
my favorite scares. Like Rob is so good at these scares.
It's so well done.
I was about to call it a jump scare, but it's not really because it's all in camera.
It kind of serves as one, but it's not like your traditional sort of jump scare, and it's done very, very expertly.
I mean, how amazing is it that they got Tyler
Oh my
Mane
God.
to 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 blend in behind that tree? Like, how huge was that tree?
And you can like, if you look at it, you can see part of his outline, but like it again, it like you said, it blends. It's believable that that's just part of the tree trunk.
I mean, I was
Oh man,
looking at it this time and I didn't even see him.
this
I
is
mean, it's dark. I mean, the lighting was very well done. See, I just need to see them. Like that was such a
yeah.
good little scare.
I like it as a marker for the fact that he's there and what's about to happen. And I'll be honest, this might be a part you may see me in tears for the first time. This scenes coming up usually get me. I'm gonna try my hardest not to get there. But
Now, I think
I've always sort of seen this as like the goodbye to Jamie Lloyd as well. Not just the character of Annie in this, but also like
no.
we never got a proper goodbye for Danielle Harris in a Halloween franchise, you know?
Danielle and I did talk about that, and I, I basically asked her, like, did you see this as not just a send off an exit for Annie the character, but for your you know time in this franchise? Because fans did not get to say goodbye to you in Halloween 6 because of the
Yeah.
recasting. It was so unceremonious. And it's also interesting because that scene, or this scene coming up, was going to be done very differently. It was done very differently in the script. Annie's death scene. It was much less ceremonious. It was, uh, you know, the way it sounds, it would not have had the punch it does now, because basically they would have walked in and found her like kind of bleeding out in a bathtub, and we wouldn't have seen any of the struggle between Annie and Michael. It was basically an off-screen kill,
Yeah.
which is shocking because it's like that suspense, like cutting back to these brief flashes of like whatever is happening in there, but we know it must have been awful. And it's I think a real good example of like Rob showing restraint. That's a criticism he's always gotten. I'm not going to call this a very restrained movie, but when he does show restraint, it's to like really, a really precise effect.
Yeah, and something we're about to see here is Lori kind of sober up, or Angel kind of sober up very
Mhm.
quickly. And if you don't think
Very
that's
quickly,
believable,
yeah.
then you've never been drunken very suddenly in a situation where things are dire. Because if you have been, you would know that sometimes when stuff like that happens, you start thinking clearly a lot quicker than you think you would. Um, they there are moments that can really sober you up real fast, at least momentarily, while the adrenaline is still there.
Now we're about, yeah, there he is.
Oh
Just another,
man,
and I want to dispel this notion that the stalking Michael, is absent from these movies. I really like the way he creeps around and hulks around
yeah,
and he it's funny because now we've cast such a huge guy. It's like it's kind of hard for him to blend in the way Nick Castle did. But again, it's about the photography. It's about the way they frame him.
mm-hmm.
It's about the way they play with shot composition. And I always thought that was done to really good effect. And that's something I really like about the first movie, Rob's first movie too.
Oof,
And see how effective is that to just kind of cut back to these brief
so effective.
flashes. And it does, I mean, it does everything it needs to prepare you for what's about to happen. Like, imagine if they just walked in and just found her dead. Like, how, especially after she survived the first movie, how anticlimactic would that be?
Yeah,
Okay, now some people think that that line from Sherry means that Michael raped her. Is
yeah,
is
no,
that your
that's not.
interpretation?
No, not at all.
No,
Not at
this is
all.
not Halloween 6. This is not
No, no, it's
the
not.
producer's cut of Halloween 6. And how terrible would it be for both of the characters that Danielle Harris has played in this franchise to be raped by
I
Michael
know.
Myers?
I
Like, what the
know.
fuck? I
Ugh.
mean, it is, it's in character for Michael to leave her naked to, complete, like, I always think of that as Michael slut shaming these girls, which I think is kind of a core component to him as a character. I mean, because what's he doing? He's going around killing, girls while they're sleeping around or
Yeah.
getting ready to sleep around. You got to remember, Laurie was not his target in the first movie. His target really was Annie. And, he kills Judith Myers after she sleeps with her boyfriend. So to me, Michael Myers has always been about slut shaming. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah, in a
is
bit.
especially present in this version. I'm surprised that's something I don't see come up often, even in the post Me Too era. People are not calling out Michael Myers for his toxic behavior. Although I do remember people accusing him of being homophobic for killing that gay couple in Halloween
Yeah,
Kills. Do you remember that? That was a
I
moment.
do. Yeah.
And this so something else about Rob, and I think this is where I like to compare him to. He's the Sam Peckinpah to John Carpenter's um, Howard Hawks, because Howard Hawks dealt with violence in a similar way to John. It was brief, it was flash, it was not something to linger on. That would be in poor taste. That would seemingly distract from the real drama going on. But Rob, like, he takes that and he makes like a whole micro drama happens in the moment from the beginning of a kill to the end of a kill. And I think
Yeah.
that's what Sam Peckinpah kind of popularized with the Wild Bunch. That's why people, take so many shots and why it takes so long for them to die.
There is Mrs. Tyler Maine.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Is she Canadian too?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I
Oh, that's
love that we
just
have a Canadian Michael Myers, by the way.
yeah, and this costume really works here.
Or the Laurie's
Oh,
costume.
yeah, it just the way that the blood mixes in with it and the pale face and all that, it perfectly fits with the environment. Yeah, this is where I stop having fun. Normally I'd be in tears by now, so I'm doing good. Um, it's tough.
It's a hard scene to watch, man.
It's also hard because if you've ever lost somebody to terrible circumstances before, you always wish that you could have gotten a moment to say bye to them, but you always think too, like, what would that have been like, And
Yeah.
this one's tough for me. I see a lot in this one, and it's really well, and the music choice here being the exact song that was played when Deborah Meyer or when Mother Myers shot herself in the first
Yeah.
film is it's just a perfect choice,
No,
and
this
it's
functions really well
heartbreaking.
as a sequel. Like when you think of like what a sequel has to do, it has to call back to the original,
It
it has to
is
build on that, it has to
a
continue
near
that.
perfect sequel
Yeah.
to the first film.
Which
And
people
I
never talk
always,
about it in those
no,
terms because
no,
people
they
don't
don't.
like that first film, but it really functions perfectly as a
Yes.
sequel,
This
even with
door
all the radical
also
changes.
was
Yeah.
not a prop door. He had to break through a real door, and he was supposed to break through it in like one or two hits, but it took many more.
Yeah.
And he was like really pissed off, he said after that too.
Well, because apparently Rob was like, "What's taking so long?"
Yeah, it was, yeah. And he came through the door and like where he like shoves it out of the way there, that was him just really being like pissed off about it. And we're about to get another part that I usually I'm in full tears and then I start to break out of it here and I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then oh, what a shot right here too. And then we're about to see right now
I mean,
starts me back up again.
this is the scene, right?
This honestly might I'm really hoping that I can hold it together here. This is tough.
And Brad Dourif is such
He doesn't get a
a
chance
god
to
tier
show this
actor.
side of him.
Well, he has just in smaller movies throughout his
Yeah.
career. I mean, the first movie he got noticed for was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
But most of us think of him as Chucky or being in that world. No, man, he's a powerhouse of an actor. And then they're gonna cut to real
Yeah,
footage of
dude,
Daniel Harris.
that's the part that
Yeah,
usually gets me, man.
yeah.
It's so expertly used. It's such a good idea. And it juxtaposes this awful, naked, you know, just destroyed woman that's on the floor to this innocent child. It's like, oh God, that's
Well, and of
tough.
course, it reinforces the fact that this is a goodbye to not just Daniel Harris, the
Yes.
actor playing Annie, but Daniel Harris, Jamie Lloyd,
Yeah.
who's been in this franchise since she was a child.
Yeah, I mean, you know, she she is to me, and by the way, that actor right there, that's Patrick Starr next to him right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
He
so
looks like
yeah,
Patrick Starr.
yeah, he'll when he talks in a minute, when he's like they found him in a shack, you can kind of hear the progression to that voice. But um yeah, that's always been a really tough scene, and I don't think the theatrical version does it as well. I think I could see how people could see it as comedic, where he's like, oh, but like, what? How would you react? And there's
Mm-hmm.
that scene in Harry Potter that I think of, and I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but when he's like, my boy, it's like, what else would you do? Like,
Yeah. And, there's so much German expressionism to the style here. Like this is a
oh
true
yeah,
like this is a movie of truly eclectic influences. And it
very
shouldn't be
surrealist imagery too,
exactly.
and it can work in grounded movies like this, and it does well in this one, I think.
Well, I think it's so, and this is where I go back to Lynch. Lynch really, like most people feel the need to juxtapose, the real with the surreal. Um, but with Lynch, it blends together.
Yeah,
And he doesn't like his movies are not about providing guardrails for you to understand what's
yeah,
real and what's not.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah. I mean, here it's not as loose as that because obviously,
not at
we're
all.
playing with the psychology of characters, but it still is about that otherworldliness kind of creeping in, seeping in, invading, a safe space.
Here we're getting another horror cameo coming up here.
What, the guy driving?
Yeah, this is gonna be, if I'm not incorrect about his name, I do get it mixed up frequently, but this is Sean Whalen, I believe. He is from People Under the Stairs.
Oh yeah,
He is well beloved in the horror community,
I
from what I
definitely
understand.
recognize that name. I actually might have seen him at a convention or something.
He's at a lot of them, and another guy that people just see as a nice guy. This shot coming up here in a moment is probably my favorite of the film.
Oh, where he lifts the car.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the scene. I think it is pretty cool, but this shot coming up right
Yeah.
there. Oh my God, are you kidding me? That's
Again,
crazy, man.
how cool it looks totally trumps how stupid it is. I don't.
And you know what? Like, it's not all that dumb. It's a little dumb, but it's not all that dumb.
I mean, he's a huge guy. I don't know if
Oh, that shot of the hair hanging down from the mask.
he might be capable of doing that. I'd be curious. I mean, because some people are strong enough to lift a car, right? Maybe not flip it over, but it was on a hill. I don't know. Again,
Yeah, I mean, it's a small car, first of all. And, there are stories of like, mothers lifting cars off their
yeah.
children and things like that. So, it's not totally out of the
Well,
question.
who really cares? Why do
It's
we have to?
also a slasher, a horror movie killer,
Yeah,
That's
like
a really cool shot too.
yeah. I don't like this. I don't know, something about the fade effect. I get why they did it, but just this is one time where the visual dynamic of Sherry, Michael, and little Michael doesn't really gel. I mean, it's a brief shot, but that's just one moment where, like, yeah, when you see them just kind of out in the open in this
I
evenly
always kind of
lit
like that.
field, yeah, okay. But here, when we get into the shack, this is like we can talk about what goes on in this shack, and the merits of it and so on. But and again, visually, like, give Rob a sandbox to play in, and that's what the production design team and the cinematographer did. Basically, it's like one fun house after another, like the strip club, the shack,
Yeah.
even that bathroom that's all decked out with the Manson shit.
By the way, the song that plays in this during this scene is titled Love Shack.
That's
I don't know
hilarious.
if it's played in this version though. It might be theatrical only. It's a good track though. I like that she can see her now.
And see, I don't mind that Sherry's talking now, and I'm not gonna rag on her performance. It's a pretty hard performance, and I would like to know, like, how did
Yeah.
Rob direct her? Like, how did, like, what was that conversation like? Um, I feel like he probably just told her a lot of, like, okay, now you're gonna look down, then you're gonna say the line, and then you're gonna look back up to Tyler. Like, I doubt there was a lot of, like, meticulous, like, remember, you are
Right.
a ghost, or you're a figment of her imagination. Act
I'm sure a
creepy.
lot of it was up to her.
Yeah.
And she's got pretty good instincts. I think. I don't think people give her enough credit. But I do think
She's a
that
good
like
actress.
I do
Yeah.
think her weakest moments as an actress are all in. Mm, I think most of her very big one is in this movie. But everything else is okay. It doesn't detract from my enjoyment. That's a great shot too.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's funny. We don't have the third act chase. Like, we don't have that.
No.
In the first one, we had a great one. That's one of the highlights of the film, is the chase from with Michael
Yeah.
and Laurie, and we don't have that here. And even I'm conflicted about that, because I think that would have, I don't know, that would have kind of evened out the pacing a little bit more, because this movie is kind of the pacing of it is very different for a slasher movie, right? But I don't know,
Yeah.
at this point, it's so cerebral, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's really about the it's a family drama by now.
I like that
Now,
right there. It's all crumbled down, and now he has to face it. It's very, very
even though
well.
he's so much to blame.
Well, I think that's why he realizes he has to face it now. Is that like at the very least he is to blame for a lot of the events that happened in this movie. I've never been one to blame Loomis for Michael escaping and for killing people. He's told everybody
No,
how
yeah.
dangerous Michael was. But I mean, capitalizing on it and reopening wounds. He is. This is absolutely justified. This punch to the face.
Yeah. I mean, he's honestly, I'm surprised that's the worst he gets.
Well, he
Although
does.
he does get a gun to his head.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he gets, you know,
Fuck.
we'll get to that.
Fuck. It's another great acting moment from Brad Dourif.
Uh-huh.
I know so many people just associate him with Chucky, but he's so much more than that as an actor. This is the movie I think of when I think of Brad Dourif. To me, I know it's not for other people, but this is him for me.
I just realized it's interesting. Like, Loomis and Laurie had no relationship. that like after the first movie, it seems like they never talked again or something.
They
Which just
followed a similar
shows
path, though.
very similar. I mean, they're brought together again.
That's what I like.
I would have liked them to have had some kind of relationship. At the same time, the with the with the paths that they've chosen, you know, I mean, they wouldn't want to be around each other. They wouldn't. They
No,
just
I
be
mean, yeah,
reminders to each
they
other.
both they both don't they both want to distance themselves from the people they were when that happened. And it's kind of cool to see it. Like, you almost see it at the beginning of the movie where they're both injured and they're both hurt, and then the whole movie they start taking a path away from each other,
I
and then it
love
starts to
this.
come
Yeah,
back.
yeah. I love the soundscape of this whole sequence
Me
right
too.
now. The sound design. That's something I really liked about the first Halloween too. Rob, I mean, he's a musician, so you would hope he would be good at this, but
Oh my god,
he
yeah.
plays with sound so well.
I'm honestly surprised on how good he is on visuals, like his vision. I know obviously, there's a cinematographer and stuff, but like to have that eye as a director is really impressive when you come from a world like music.
He's a stylistic guy. Like when you see his artwork, the artwork he does for his album covers, he directs
Yeah.
his music videos.
Yeah, and it's not really fair for me to say that he came from music solely. I mean, he's always loved films. He was a PA on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Well, he went to the Pratt Institute for graphic design, I believe. So he went to school for graphic design.
Now we're coming up on a pretty controversial part of the movie once again. The last, I'd say. No, I wouldn't say the last.
I don't know if the
Somehow there's
controversy ever
more.
ends with this movie.
Here is where it peaks in my mind.
Yeah.
As
I
we
know people who
see,
love this movie who hate this
yes, Michael removes his mask
and says die,
and says
which was
die
Tyler
and
Maine's
stabs
idea.
Loomis.
Did you know that?
I didn't, but I'm about to defend it in a second. I like that he did that.
Ooh, what you
I
say?
don't love this. This part is the only part of this movie that I definitively don't like, and it's why for a while I hesitated in giving this movie as high of a rating as I did, because this is comical.
It's comical. I don't understand why there are no blood squibs. Like, I guess there's a
There
little
are
bit.
there are some blood squibs, but it's just,
I guess it's because there's all
it
this
doesn't.
debris flying around. It just doesn't register.
Yeah,
Like I wanted a Bonnie and Clyde
yeah.
or worse type of shootout.
I mean, just have him get dropped after a couple. Have it be like kind of slow. Have him. He doesn't have to shake. I don't understand why that's a thing in movies where people just like move back and forth like a penguin.
Well, I get that he's this big, unstoppable slasher. He's just going to stand there and he's just going to take it until he gets one slug too many.
Now, this whole sequence here is completely different in the theatrical version.
Right.
Laurie comes out of the shed wearing Michael's mask after Loomis screams inside the shack, and that's the ending of the movie we get.
Can I be honest with you?
You like this
I do prefer the theatrical ending.
You do prefer the theatrical ending.
I
Okay.
do prefer the theatrical ending.
So I guess I'll be
prefer
here
for a few
to
reasons.
defend this one.
I would love to hear your defense because I've yet to actually hear somebody really even try to defend it. So please.
So here's what I love. First of all, the die thing I think works perfectly. You have an adult with the mind of a child, finally coming back to basically being himself. This is all coming to a head, right? The story that we've discussed throughout the movie. But what I love about this more is that not only did it affect Michael coming back and everything mending together, it affects Laurie, and now Laurie is stuck sort of forever in this sort of prison of it's almost like a purgatory, but it's like hell kind of. She's stuck in the mind of Michael Myers, basically.
What's happening in her mind. And in the theatrical cut, this is the first time the Halloween theme kicks in, right?
Yes, it is
something like that. No, I hear what you're saying. I actually think the theatrical cut kind of handles all of those ideas better, because she come out of the shack already wearing the Michael Myers
She
mask.
already comes out where she's wearing the mask, and then she takes it out, and then she's in the ending of the theatrical cut is to sort of let you know that this sequence that we're seeing now with this hallway is Laurie now in an asylum like Michael was, as opposed to being trapped in the asylum of her mind for
Yeah.
seemingly eternity, which is why I like it more. With, by the way, Love Hurts, absolutely a perfect rendition and a perfect use of the song
I'm
here.
so tired of people complaining about that needle drop. Like, it's such a it's such an appropriate needle drop. Like,
I feel like it is.
that's the theme of both these movies. Love hurts, especially when, you come from a dysfunctional family.
And that's such an important thing about these movies is it's all about the comfort Michael takes from his family. And his family is his mother and his Angel or Lori. And now they're together forever. And but for her, obviously now she has sort of taken some of these characteristics from Michael, some sort of the nature side of that argument, as she is trapped in this place forever. She's not in an asylum like Michael was in real life. This is where her mind is trapped. And this shot here is so perfect. It's just like the shot we got earlier of little Michael in the asylum behind Loomis.
It's a great ode to Psycho.
Great ode to Psycho. Great ode to the movie itself. Very self-referential. But now
That
she
damn
is
white horse is
seeing those
back.
same things. Yep.
Yeah.
And I love the white horse. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's a great visual key.
It's a great
People
visual
will call
key
it the
in
unicorn,
this,
and it's a great symbol of this purity that Michael sees his mother as, and that eventually Laurie is sort of sucked into. It really, this movie's very poetic. This Both of these movies are very poetic and story heavy if you really focus on them as we get to the end credits.
And that's it. That's the end of, the Rob Zombie duology. That's
Yeah.
the final frame on the Rob Zombie take on the Halloween mythos. The last time the audiences would see Michael Myers for a while, almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And there are those two nasty, nasty men, the Weinsteins.
Bob and Harvey Weinstein. Yep.
And Bob Weinstein, who's no angel.
And we get shots from these movies of the victims of Michael, really just Michael's victims.
Congratulations,
and even
Brandon
though they're not
Trost.
all dead,
I just have to,
Brandon Trost.
Yeah,
He is it. Incredible in this movie, as creating some of the most iconic shots for me in the entire franchise. I love that Love Hurts is what's playing right now. It just, and by the way, great job by Nan Vernon. She's the vocalist who is doing this rendition. She also did one of Mr. Sandman for the first movie. Both incredibly well done.
They include the Halloween theme credit for John Carpenter, even though they never play it in this version.
I know. By the way, Brandon Trost has done a lot of work since then. He's very much a working cinematographer. He does have a pretty bad cinematographer movie in his filmography, but everything else is pretty good looking movies. Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance.
I'm not gonna blame that on him.
But he also did like Lords of Salem. He did the Sonic movies. He did the Disaster Artist. Seems like he's done a lot of comedies, but he's
also done some pretty big movies, the Sonic movies.
Oh yeah, I mean he's working, and he did Lords of Salem as well with Rob. Another
one of Rob's best looking movies.
Exactly, I think his two best looking movies are both this guy. So they work well together. And as we go through these credits here, I guess we can sort of kind of give our final little things we want to say about this movie. Is there anything that you've left unsaid so far that you'd like to get out as we get close to wrapping this?
Well, anything that I've left unsaid, I believe I will have commented on the Dread Central on the article I wrote for Dread Central. Looking forward to that coming out. But I think it's so hard to capture why you love a movie, especially when it's so contested as this movie, because you're trying to defend it and summarize your own, why you love it at the same time. And with the movie that is, that does everything wrong on paper, it seems to completely misunderstand why people love the Halloween movies, or doesn't give a fuck why people love them. It has, you know, one of the most divisive filmmakers really doubling down on most of the things that makes him divisive. Uh, so yeah, it's like, how do you turn around and then say with confidence that it is your favorite movie of this franchise and one of your
Hmm.
favorite horror movies ever? But I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go back to all of these central things, that this is the most emotionally affecting, this is the most thematically rich, and um and one of the most stylistic, atmospheric, and expertly executed slasher movies that I've ever seen. And I think it transcends that genre. I mean, it maybe to its detriment, because it could have, you know, it could have been more of a slasher movie for general audiences,
Hmm.
but again, it's made up of all these eclectic influences that come together to tell a really heartbreaking story, but a really resonant story about, you know, about dysfunctional families, about survivor's guilt, um, about, you know, being changed by
Hmm.
trauma.
Yeah.
And it does all that, you know, while paying homage to, you know, types of cinema that I know I adore, that I love, you know, exploitation cinema, German expressionism. You know, I feel like I might have been bred in a laboratory to appreciate this movie in a pretty
Yeah.
unique way, because I really love everything that this movie was going for. And I acknowledged, you know, why people don't like it. I get why people don't like it. But I just, you got to respect, I think, the audacity of this film, because it wasn't done to troll people. It was done because I think Rob had a genuine heart for these characters and for this saga.
Yeah, and he does a really good job of wrapping his own story. I mean, it's left off at a note where you could do something with a sequel. You know, if Michael survived this, you know, his rampage of how furious he'd be that he finally got his family back together, and now he doesn't see those visions and he doesn't hear the voices and he doesn't, you know, none of it's there. There's really a pathway if they wanted to do something. But what I love about it is it perfectly wraps up the story that one started. Family is the most important thing to this character, and we start the movie with them all together in the first one, and we end the movie in this one with them all back together, to the detriment of this innocent girl who's done nothing wrong. Um, like you said, incredibly like heartbreaking if you follow the story. You know, I can understand if this isn't what people want to see from Halloween. I do get a little miffed when people when say that Halloween 6 is one of their favorites and that this is one of their least favorites. I don't get that. But what I do understand is seeing this movie as too far of a departure for what you're used to. For me, though, you know, I think it's important to have departures. I think if every movie was the same in this Halloween franchise, it would get really tiring. It's why a lot of the different takes on it that feel different than the first two movies are some of my favorites. And expanding on the lore is something that I love. It's why
Mm-hmm.
the first movie is not at the top of my list. So yeah, this is easily my favorite horror movie. The emotion, the way it makes the first film better. Truthfully, the first film would be pretty low on my Halloween ranking. It would be significantly lower than it is if this movie wasn't around to make me appreciate it more. Uh, because I do think this movie makes the first one better. And
It does elevate the first one. It
yeah,
turns the first one into not just, you know, a standalone, but now, you know, it's part of a saga, an epic tragedy. You know, I love the first one despite its flaws, and it is
yeah, of
flawed,
course, yeah,
absolutely, and it
I do
has
too.
things I won't defend, unlike this movie. But
Yeah, there's nothing I won't defend in this. I want
right,
that to be
to
clear.
one
Even
extent
things
or
that I
another,
don't
yeah,
love, I will
yeah.
defend everything in this. I think it was in the pursuit of perfection, and I think they got pretty damn close to that.
Yeah. And this was a really reaffirming experience watching this again with you know, a critical eye, working through all of the things that work and don't work about it, and coming out the end still saying like, damn, what a fine movie that is. Like, I'm
Yeah,
so happy that this exists when it doesn't have any right to. But this is like a freak accident of a movie in a lot of ways. Uh
100%.
an unrepeatable thing, and I'm just fucking so grateful that we have it. So yeah, that's me and Connor, giving a 2-hour blowjob to Rob Zombie,
Yeah.
in the form of our Halloween 2 commentary. I know I had a blast,
Oh yeah.
and I would love for people to know if they would like to see more commentaries from us. Because there's so many movies that me and Connor have really bonded over throughout the years, and I think we would both love the experience of just watching a movie with y'all,
Yeah.
sharing our thoughts about it, reminiscing. And there's so many things that we didn't even get to, like production details, choices that we loved.
I have a
What
feeling this won't be the last time that the people are hearing us discuss Halloween 2.
No, we'll never get it out of our system, which is as annoying as it is to me as it probably is to you guys. But we have
Yeah.
literally run out of credits.
Yep.
So
That's the movie.
that's the movie. That's Halloween 2. That's Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Maybe we'll do commentaries for more movies in this franchise. Maybe we'll do more for Rob Zombie. I mean, I think we've overlooked Halloween '07. I think we need to
Yeah, I
dedicate
think
some
so
time
too.
to that,
I
because
would love to.
I think I tell myself that it's I kind of tell myself that it's really not as good as I remember it after hearing so many people bash it, and then I rewatch. I'm like, oh fuck, I I fuck with this so
I
hard. Like,
really like it. Yeah, I
yeah,
really do like it. Even
yeah,
though it's lower than what it would sound like it is on my ranking. I still think the movie is way better than anybody says that it is.
yeah. Honestly, it's my second favorite in the franchise. It's
Is it
not
really?
better. It's
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's not better than John Carpenter's Halloween. I'm not saying that. It is my second favorite though. This is my first easily, and by quite a bit. It's really not a contest with any other film on this list.
I mean, I love this franchise. It's my second favorite film franchise.
Yeah, I
I've said
know.
that
Yeah,
on our show before, and this is still my number one. And so, hopefully, if somebody did listen through this and they weren't a fan, they'll give hopefully this watch helped your enjoyment. I hope so. I hope it did. If it didn't, though, I would like to hear from both critics and lovers of this movie in the comments. If you've made it this far, if you have sat through this, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments on it. That would be really cool. And like Gabe said, let us know if you want to see anything in the future. But you already know where to go if you want to support us and help us out. All the links are on our website, thatbadmedia.com. You can find our Patreon, you can find our socials, you can find our videos, library, everything is there. So go check that out. Of course, liking, commenting, subscribing, all of those things help us out as
yeah,
well.
and we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming, as we continue to, do the podcast and also experiment
Yep.
with different formats. Again, this was the first time for us, and we really enjoyed it. And we're always looking for ways to expand and continue getting our thoughts out there, as long as you guys are interested in listening. So yeah, happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy
Everybody's entitled to
Halloween.
one good scare, and I'm sure seeing Rob Zombie Halloween 2 praise was a pretty big scare for some of you. So go out, enjoy All Hallows Eve, and we'll see you next time.
Yes. Have a safe night, everybody.